Welcome back to That Was the Week That Was, week 16 of 2023. And as usual, I am here to ask Vince McLeod of the Alternative Centre to catch me up on the happenings of the last week. Hey Vince, how are you going?
Hey Bob, I'm doing really well. It was 27 degrees here in Nelson today, which is warmer than any other time I can remember at this point in April. So it's interesting to see what's happening.
Gosh, wow, we are in a state of flux, aren't we? The world as
Yeah,
well,
things are changing. Things are changing all around the world faster than ever.
faster than ever. All right, let's jump into some of those changes. Last week, we learned that the arms dealers are so delighted at the way that the munitions are being consumed in Eastern Europe that they are making plans to expand their strategy into Asia. Apparently, America is going to stop China dead in its tracks by arming Taiwan to the teeth.
The arms dealers haven't had it this good since World War II, really, since there's a big war in Europe right now, and everybody's talking about a potential war in Taiwan. I think the Taiwan war is more of an interest because it is going to involve a lot more people. The war in Ukraine, Russia is no longer really a world superpower. The Russian economy is about the size of the Italian one, barely larger than the Spanish one. So they are no longer the force that they were back in the Soviet Union days. But China, on the other hand, their economy measured on a price purchasing parity basis is as big as the American economy now. So they could potentially pose a gigantic threat in the East. And if I was an arms dealer, I'd be rubbing my hands at the thought of something kicking off regarding Taiwan. Taiwan is already armed to the teeth, so I don't know what extra munitions they're going to be given from the Americans, but I suspect it's going to have something to do with anti-ship missiles, which are starting to become extremely advanced right now. And if I was an American admiral, I'd be trying to work with the Taiwanese to take down the Chinese Navy and their landing vessels with the missiles before they got across the strait.
Wow. Okay. Well, prospects for employment in the army, I think.
Yeah.
Vince, what you politely refer to as the ruling class are what I call society's most vocal psychopaths and bullies. And last week we witnessed a very public error by Elizabeth Carey that revealed her to be an extremely nasty and mean-spirited woman. Aren't there a lot of abusers in Parliament now?
So many people in politics claim that the abusers and the bullies and the psychopaths and the narcissists are all on the other side. If you're a left winger, you say they're on the right side. If you're a right winger, you say they're on the left side. But the reality is they're on both sides, and
Yeah.
they are far more heavily represented in Parliament than they are in the population in general. You've got Elizabeth Kerekere on the left wing, the Green Party. She's not even the worst bully on the left wing. That's probably Kieran McAnulty of the Labour Party. The National, you've got Sam Uffindale, who was used to beat the crap out of people with bed legs when he was at high school. And then in ACT Party, you've got Brooke Van Velden, who's obviously a psychopath or something close to it. So you've got psychopaths represented all across the whole political spectrum at Parliament. It really is that Parliament attracts these sort of people because the ruling class likes to have a wall of psychopaths between them and the masses, so they can keep the masses down, they can keep the masses divided and under control. So Parliament really does select for these sort of people, even though common sense tells you that you'd want to keep them as far away from positions of power as possible.
Yes. And we also give them access to all our money.
All our money and all of the knowledge that the intelligence services have is all accessible to these psychopaths in Parliament. So it's a really bad situation, really. As far as the Alternative Centre is concerned, we would like to see things become a lot more decentralized.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to watch your ideas on that emerge. That's very interesting to me. Okay, but changing focus momentarily. Stats New Zealand told us on Thursday that rent has risen by 4.3%. A cigarette now costs $1.95, and inflation is 6.7%. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Vince, on these latest figures.
$1.95 per cigarette is brutal. When I used to smoke tobacco 12 years ago, I thought I was paying $1 for a cigarette back then, and I thought that was brutal. So it's almost doubled just over the last 12 or 13 years, and incomes won't have doubled anywhere near that. As far as the alternative centre is concerned, we don't do Puritanism. We're not interested in controlling people, so we would not have such high taxes on tobacco. I have no problem with tobacco being $10 a pack because I know that it's a useful medicine for PTSD and other traumatic stress disorders. But unfortunately, because we've got such a puritanical mindset in New Zealand, we're obsessed with the idea of forcing everybody to stop smoking it. That's why we've got the smoke-free Aotearoa 2025 idea, which is obviously going to be a massive failure because there's already starting to become large amounts of tobacco being sold on the black market in New Zealand. And as far as the inflation is concerned, 6.7%, I think that's a bit lower than what people are predicting, but it's still a lot higher than what our official cash rate is. So I think the Reserve Bank will not see that as exceptionally good news, and they'll still be looking to raise the official cash rate next time they meet.
So we're not out of the woods completely.
Not at all. I think inflation's still fairly high in Europe and still around 6 or 7% in America. So I think that's about what we're going to have to expect for the time being.
The next item is actually about the power of the people. During the Posey Parker debacle in Auckland, a violent protester punched an older woman in the head and cracked her skull. So Jesse James, who is at Mad Dog Coin on Twitter, shared the Granny Bash's photo around, and this week he was apprehended by the police. Will we see justice?
This is a very interesting story for me because I was following Leo Malloy, who ran to be the mayor of Auckland. He was on Twitter sharing around that photo and sharing it a lot. He put in a really big effort to try and find the Granny Basher of Albert Park. And he has been found, as you said. He's been apprehended by the police and he's appeared before a court. So I think this is a really interesting case of not so much Big Brother, but more like Big Sister, which is watching over and manages to find people who have actually done something wrong and hopefully bring them to justice. However, you see people who kill each other just getting home detention now, so it's extremely unlikely he's going to get a severe punishment for it, but he might get a criminal record and perhaps a fine or at least a massive humiliation. I already heard that he didn't appear to be enjoying his court appearance at all, so he's probably going to be taking some grief from this, and that will continue for a while, I'd say. So I guess that's the justice.
Yeah, natural justice. And decentralization, it actually works when the people get involved.
It works in this instance. It's lucky that he was on being filmed punching the old woman, because that was what was shared around the whole internet and everybody saw that. So they were able to find him and make sure that he was taken in by the police.
Well, we are cyborgs now, Vince. We are cyborgs. Okay, so we are going to end tonight's show on a high. Last week in Oregon, in the US, state licenses were granted to shamans who want to facilitate 6-hour magic mushroom initiation sessions.
There's new hope for those with a mental illness, with the federal government announcing it'll fund clinical trials into magic mushrooms and other psychedelic drugs as treatments.
What we're seeing in the psychology literature today is that people are really becoming aware of the therapeutic benefits of traditional psychiatric medicines such as cannabis and psilocybin. There's also a lot of literature that shows there's potential therapeutical use for ketamine and for MDMA as well. Of course, they aren't traditional substances, but they're still apparently useful. And I think that we're going to see this revolutionize mental health care over the next 5 or 10 years, because the current model that we operate under is really Rockefeller medicine. The point of it is to have somebody subscribe to a doctor, so they have to go to the doctor every 3 months to get more pills that they take every day. That's the most profitable and most controlling method that they have. And the Alternative Centre, again, we'd like to see the power devolved back to the people, so that the people themselves had more ability to control their own mental health care. So I'd like to see legalization of all of these things, not just cannabis and psilocybin, but also ketamine and MDMA. And I think we'll see over the next 5 or 10 years that they're going to become really popular, and we're going to see a lot of research literature devoted to how they work and the most effective ways to use them. So I'm extremely optimistic about a revolution in mental health care.
Changing at the speed of light.
Yeah, everything's changing faster and faster. To me, it seems like society's the rate of change is increasing every month. I think there's now more future shock than ever.
Wow, Vince, what a week that was.
It was a crazy week, all right? And I think it's going to get crazier still. So make sure to come and watch us again next week.
The Alt Centre are clown world's good guys. They don't fit into boxes neatly enough to be someone else's tools.